Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Can you guys hear me now? Can you guys see my screen and hear me? Okay, alhamdulillah. All right. So, inshallah, I'm trying to record this session from two different laptops, so hopefully one of them will work still, inshallah. So last week we really? Okay, just bear with me a minute. Let me grab. Hello? Okay, how about now? Can you hear me now? I had to find my earphones and my microphone. I should be unmuted. Javed bhai, can you hear me? Okay. I'm assuming everybody can hear me, inshallah, and can see my screen. You have to excuse me, I'm a little bit under the weather as well. I thought I was going to be okay, but because I had a cold. But alhamdulillah, it should be okay, inshallah. So excuse me if I have to clear my throat and stuff. So alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsanin ila yawmiddin, amma ba'd. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So what we're doing today is basically we're going over the rules that we went over last week, mainly because we couldn't get the recording to work. So for the benefit of the people who didn't attend and for the benefit of recording it for online audience, I'm just going to go over it. It was a new set of rules anyways, so it's good to revise them. So inshallah we'll go over them today. So ahkam al-noon al-sakina wa tanween, the noon sakina and tanween rules, and it will become really clear really soon what the noon sakina and tanween are all about and what the rules are. Okay, so تعريف النون الساكنة. The definition of Nun as-Sakina is when you don't have any vowel. Javed, are you sure your speakers are turned on? Because I think other people can hear me and I have the equipment all set up. So check your speakers. The only difference this week is I have an additional laptop set up.
Muted.
Okay. Pardon me. So, inshallah, Javed, if you still can't hear, inshallah, you'll be able to use the recording if nothing else. But I would urge you to turn up the speakers or maybe turn it off and turn it back on. Okay. So, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ta'rif al-Nun al-Sakina. The definition of Nun Sakina is that there is, obviously there is a Nun, but it has no, there is no haraka, there is no vowel on the Nun. So, which means that, you have to stop at the Nun momentarily, or, I'm sorry, so you have to stop at the Nun. That's why there is, this thing called Nun as-Sakina. There is a sukun, there is a stopping, or there is no haraka on the Nun. Okay, so it remains unchanged in the written form and as well as in pronunciation when continuing to read after it and when stopping on it. So even if you're stopping on the Nun or if you're continuing to read after that, it remains the same. Okay. So there's no haraka, there's no zabar zair pesh, or there's no fatha kasra dhamma on it. So that's why there's the Nun sakina. Sometimes there is a little jazm or a sukun symbol on top of it, and sometimes there isn't. In any case, it's what it means is that there is a sukun on the Nun itself. That's why we have the Nun as-Sakina. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. So Nun Sakina can occur in nouns and verbs in the middle of the word and at the end of the word, and it occurs in prepositions and particles only at the end of the word. So in the case of and then Nun Sakina can be written with a jazm or with a symbol, like I mentioned just now. It can be written with a symbol or without a symbol. So in the case of minha, there is a symbol of jazm on top of the Nun, and in the case of an, there is no symbol on the Nun. Although you could put a symbol on it, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. But you can have Nun Sakina without the symbol. Okay. Okay. The definition of tanween. Any questions first of all for Nun Sakina? Everybody knows what Nun Sakina is. So is it clear what Nun Sakina is? Okay, alhamdulillah. Hoping everybody else also thinks the same. تعريف التنوين, the definition of tanween is that it's the term for an extra nun sakin and not used for emphasis found at the end of nouns when continuing the reading, but absent from the noun when in the written form. The nun of the tanween is pronounced but not written, and abandoned in pronunciation when stopping. Okay, this is an important feature of tanween. Then you don't pronounce the tanween when you're stopping at the word, okay, at the sentence or at the word. If you're stopping there, you don't pronounce the tanween, and there's no noon written, but the sound of the noon is there, okay, so that's why it's tanween. But to indicate the tanween, you have the symbols double fatha, double kasra, or double dhamma, as is in the textbook that you can see on the screen. So you have fathatan, kasratan, or dhammatan, meaning two fathas, two kasras, or two dhammas written on top of the letter or below the letter, or in the case of dhamma also on top of the letter. So you have an, in, un sound, but there is no noon written. It's just the two vowel symbols. Okay. So that's called tanween. So this is common, and I mean, I'm sure everybody has seen this while reading the Quran. So it shouldn't be a very difficult thing to identify, inshallah. And then for these noon, sakina, and tajweed, as well as the tanween, there are 4 rules in tajweed that are applied. Okay, so these rules are as follows: al-izhar, al-idgham, al-iqlab, or al-ikhfa. Okay, so these 4 rules are explained further in this text. So we'll go over each one of these slowly. I think we covered just al-izhar last week because of the time constraint, and because there was a lot to cover just for al-izhar, so we'll see if we can cover more than al-izhar today. So izhar is, it means clear or obvious. That's the definition of the word izhar. In Urdu also it's the same. So for Urdu speaking folks, it shouldn't be difficult to remember. Izhar means clear or obvious. Zahir, or something that you can see, that's not hidden. Okay. So that is the linguistic definition. What it means when it's applied, or when it's in the tajweed definition, is pronouncing every letter from its articulation point without a gunna on the clear letter. Okay, so al-izhar means that you will pronounce the letter clearly without making any gunna. Okay, so you will pronounce the noon, because this is talking about nun sakin and tanween. Both are noon sounds. So you will pronounce the noon or the tanween clearly without introducing a gunna in the letter. Okay, so there is going to be no nasal sound an, in, un, but instead it's going to be an, in, un. Okay, so it's we'll see with examples, it'll become clear, inshallah. And there are 6 letters which, when they immediately follow a noon sakin or tanween, it causes the noon to be clearly said, and they are al-hamza, wal-ha, wal-ain, wal-ha, wal-ghain, wal-kha. Okay, so again, this is, I'm going to try and explain slowly. So first of all, the izhar means clear and obvious, and when you have the ruling of izhar on tanween or noon sakina, you have to pronounce the noon clearly without having the gunna. And I don't know if we mentioned what gunna was. Gunna is basically just when you're reading the Quran, you have قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. So when you say nas, that noon sound, when you have that is called gunna. Okay. So, but there are 6 instances where you where you cannot make the gunna, and those instances are when you have one of these 6 letters following the noon gunna or following the noon sakina or tanween. Okay, so if you have one of these 6 letters coming immediately after the noon sakina or the tanween letters, then you cannot make the gunna. Okay, hopefully it will become clear very soon, inshallah. So these, if you recall, these 6 letters, hamza, ha, ayn, ha, and ghain, kha, these are actually called huruf al-halqiyya. When we covered the makharij al-huruf, you should remember from there that that these letters are actually coming from the throat. So that is one of the reasons that you cannot make the gunna. So you have hamza, ha, hamza or alif. You can sometimes it's referred to as alif, but it's really hamza. Hamza, ha, ayn, ha, ghain, kha. So these 6 letters, when they are coming after the noon sakina or the tanween, then you cannot make the gunna, and you have to pronounce it with izhar. Okay. So let's look at some examples. Okay. So let's read what it says here. If one of these 6 letters follows a noon sakin or tanween in one word or even between 2 words, the noon is then clearly said. It's said clearly. Okay, so you pronounce it clearly. When the noon sakin or tanween is at the end of the word, and the tanween can only be at the end of a word, the first letter of the following word is one of the 6 letters, then we apply this izhar rule and say the noon clearly. Okay, so tanween, in the case of tanween, it's only going to be at the end of the word anyways. So the next word that starts after that tanween letter, then you have to look at the next letter, and if it's one of these 6, hamza, ha, ayn, ha, ghain, kha, then you have to make sure that you don't pronounce the gunna, but you say the letter properly. Okay, so let's look at the example. Okay, so in here we looked at this from abasa wa tawalla, min ayyi shay'in khalaqah. So there's 2 places where you could make the gunna, but you don't, because you have to use this rule called izhar, which is min. You have to pronounce the noon clearly. You cannot say min ayyi shay'in khalaqa. You cannot say that, because you're not allowed to make the gunna at the noon and at the tanween here. The hamza with 2 kasras, you cannot make the tanween here because of the letter kha, and you cannot make the gunna here because of the letter hamza right after it. Okay, so you have to remember these 6 letters: hamza, ha, ayn, ha, ghain, kha. So the easy thing to remember, they're all coming from the throat. So if any of these letters comes after the noon sakina or the tanween, then you cannot make the gunna. You have to make izhar. You have to pronounce the letter properly, clearly. That's what izhar means. Okay, so min ayyi shay'in khalaqa. And then in this case, khalaqal insana. So this is gunna, but here you have min alaq. So you have to say min alaq. You cannot say min alaq. You cannot say that because it's followed by one of these letters, which is ayn. So you have to say khalaqal insana min alaq. Okay, this is from Surah Al-Alaq. And in this third example, you have وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ. So you have to say kufuwan ahad. You cannot say kufuwan ahad. You cannot do that because that is followed by a hamza. So you have to say kufuwan ahad. So you have to pronounce the tanween, the one, kufuwan ahad. So you have to pronounce it clearly. Hopefully that is clear from this example. So وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ. Yes, you can use color-coded for ease of use. You can use color-coded mushaf, but you should get used to it even without the color coding available to you. So when the students are using, when they're learning tajweed, there are mushaf tajweeds available. That means that, for people to practice tajweed, they can just clearly see that there is a color there that says, you just remember the color that, you have to make the tanween or not, you have to make the ghunna or not, and you have to make qalqala, because there's tons of rules, right? So you have to remember all of the rules. But I think that color coding usually makes one lazy, and you kind of cheat. You don't really remember the rule. You just follow the color coding, right? So color coding is not the best solution, but it is found to be helpful for some people. What is the type of first noon in this example? Which one? Which noon is it? In the first example, second example, or the third example? Third one. وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٌ. We have not covered this one. This one, I think, is iqlab. Okay, if you're referring to يَكُنْ لَهُ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ, so that noon there, because it gets mixed with the second letter, which is lam, and you just have like a slight hint that it's there, but you don't really pronounce the noon. You just say يَكُنْ لَهُ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ. So it's like the noon isn't even there, right? So that's iqlab, but we'll cover that shortly. But here, this is what we're interested in right now. من أي شيء خلق الإنسان من علق ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. Okay. Likewise, when the nun sakina is in a word, and the next letter in that same word is one of these 6 letters, we say the nun clearly using the izhar rule. So in this example, we have فَصَلِّ لِرَبِّكَ وَانْحَرْ. You have to pronounce the nun وَانْحَرْ. You cannot say وَانْحَرْ. Okay, you cannot do the ghunna. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. Let's do a couple of examples like we did last time, so everybody gets a chance to pronounce them. So I think we did Surah Abasa wa Tawalla last time, so let's go back to it because I think it has a lot of those rules applied in the beginning there. So hopefully you guys can see my screen. I'll go ahead and make it a little bit larger once it gets loaded here. Okay, Bismillah. Okay, so let's read from here. من أي شيء خلق من نطفة خلقه فقدر. Okay, we did that last time because it has, the noon sakina and as well as the tanween. This thing keeps moving for some reason. Okay, all right. So I'll start with Shahid Ahsan. Go ahead, Shahid. I've unmuted you. So if you can go ahead and read من أي شيء خلقه من نطفة خلقه فقدره. Start with أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. من أي شيء خلقه من نطفة خلقه فقدره.
Okay, so من أي شيء خلقه.
من أي شيء خلقه.
No, you have to pronounce the in. من أي شيء خلقه.
من أي شيء خلقه.
I didn't hear the in.
من أي شيء خلقه.
من أي شيء خلقه. In.
من أي شيء خلقه.
Shabash, very good. This is good. You have to remember to pronounce the in, okay?
Okay. من نطفة خلقه فقدره.
من نطفة خلقه فقدره.
من نطفة خلقه فقدره.
نطفة
من نطفة خلقه فقدر.
Very good. Jazakallah khair. Okay, the next person in line is Kamran. Go ahead, Kamran. I've unmuted you. Can you try reading the same?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان.
Try it again. We were hearing double, like an echo, but try it again.
Unmuted. Muted.
Okay, Kamran, can you give it another try, please? Okay, we can't hear you, so let's go ahead and move to the next one until you fix your audio there. Okay, go ahead and read, Javed. You have to unmute yourself, Javed. Okay, go ahead.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم من أي شيء خلق من نطفة خلقه فقدره.
Very good. من أي شيء خلقه من نطفة خلقه فقدره. Okay. All right. Next one is Tahir. If you want to go ahead and read, Tahir. You have to unmute yourself, Tahir.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. من أي شيء خلق من نطفة خلقه فقدره.
Okay, yeah, you're doing it right. It's just that it almost seems like you are making the gunna. You shouldn't. So min, there is no gunna there. Shay'in khalaqa, there is no gunna there. Min ayyi shay'in khalaqa. So you shouldn't say shay'in. There's no gunna. Okay, so I think you're correct, but almost feels like you're almost making gunna. There should be no gunna at all. So min ayyi shay'in khalaqa. من نطفة خلقه فقدره. Try it one more time.
من شيء خلق.
No. من أي شيء.
من أي شيء خلق من نطفة خلقه فقدره.
Okay, good, better. All right, Jazakallah. So Kamran, you want to give it another try, please?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. من أي شيء خلقه من نطفة خلقه فقدره.
Very good. So, two things. You did it correctly. من أي شيء خلقه. And then in نطفة من نطفة خلقه فقدره. So you did make the gunna there, which is correct. من نطفة with the noon, but there's no gunna at نطفة خلقه. Also, you didn't say the Bismillah. You just said أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم when you started, which is the correct way because there's no Bismillah here, right? You only read the Bismillah in the beginning of the surah. that you're starting to read. Or if you're just starting to read in the middle of the surah, or if you're starting to read the beginning of Surah Tawbah, then there is no Bismillah. Although Bismillah, there's no harm in reading Bismillah, but there's definitely no Bismillah in the beginning of Surah Tawbah when you read Surah Tawbah. And also Bismillah is not required when you're starting to read in the middle of a surah. There is no starting of the surah, so you don't need to say Bismillah. Although beginning of every deed, everything that you do, usually you want to say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim before you start making wudu, before you start eating, before you do anything, right? Before you start cooking, before you start eating, before you start, changing your clothes or whatever, Okay, so so is everybody clear on this Tanween and Nun Sakina rules? Alhamdulillah, everybody got a chance to test it by reading. Although we just had one example, there's many more examples. But the point is that you have come to know what the rule is, and you have had the chance to practice it. So, can we move on to the next rule, or are you needing more examples in the same? You can tell me in the chat if you want me to give you more examples or if you want to move on to the next one. Okay, inshallah. Let's move on to the next rule. We did cover the same rule last week, so inshallah you've had ample practice. So, idgham. Pardon me. Idgham means insertion or merging. Idgham, it's just the definition, the linguistic definition is idkhal, or inserting or merging between the two letters. Okay, so so you have the meeting of a non-voweled letter with a voweled letter, so that the two letters become one emphasized letter to the second type. So in the letters are from the word yarmalun. So ya, ra, mim, lam, waw, noon. So all of these letters, one of these 6 letters are at the beginning of the word that immediately follows a word that ended in a noon, sakin, or tanween. Then the noon merges or immerses into the next letter. This is called idgham. Okay, the idgham rule for the noon, sakin, and tanween can only take place between 2 words and not within a word. This is an important part of the rule. So you have to have 2 words. Okay, the last one must be ending in nun sakina or tanween, and then you have one of these 6 letters: ya, ra, mim, lam, waw, or noon. So it becomes a word. You can easily remember it as yarmalun. Okay, because it's ya, ra, mim, lam, waw, noon, yarmalun. So one of these 6 letters is present in the next letter, in the next word. Then you have this insertion with the rule called idgham. Okay, so you have to remember that there are these 6 letters, and then this idgham rule has further complication. What it is you have 2 different sets of rules. Rule number 1 is idgham bi ghunna. You have to make the ghunna fit in the first rule, and the second one you have no ghunna. So let's look at the first one, which is idgham bi ghunna, where you have the ghunna in the with the idgham rule. Idgham, again, it just means insertion. You just join the previous letter into the next letter. Okay, so you have idgham bi ghunna, where you have 3 of these letters, which is ya, noon, mim, waw. Actually 4. 4 of these letters, they will cause the idgham to have ghunna with it. Okay, so it will become clear when we do the example. When a reader is reciting the Quran and there is a noon sakin or tanween at the end of a word, and the first letter of the next word is one of these 4 letters, then idgham bi ghunna rule is applied. This means that the noon is not pronounced clearly. Instead, it is inserted or merged into the next letter with the ghunna or nasalization that is part of the noon remaining. Okay, so you have قُلُوبٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ وَاجِفَةٌ. This is one example. Okay, so you have the noon, the nasalization of the noon is still there. You still have the ghunna, but as you can see, there is no, قُلُوبٌ. You don't say قُلُوبٌ, and you don't say يَوْمَئِذٍ. You don't say that, but you say قُلُوبٌ. So there's no noon pronounced, but instead you pronounce the ghunna. قُلُوبٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ وَاجِفَةٌ. Okay, so we'll do many more examples, inshallah. And then لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا. لغوا ولا كذابا. So there is, in this case, it was a ya after the قُلُوبٌ. So you have قُلُوبٌ. And then in this case, you had a wow, يَوْمَئِذٍ وَاجِفَةٌ. So one of these 4 letters, ya and then wow. And then here you have لَغْوًا وَلَا كِذَّابًا. So again, another wow. And then أَلَمْ نَخْلُقكُّم مِّن مَّاءٍ مَّهِينٍ. So here you have مَاءٍ مَّهِينٍ. So you do pronounce the ghunna from the mahin because of the meme. And then you have, there's no example of the noon, I think. نخلقكم من ماء مهين تبت يدا أبي لهب وتب. So I guess the noon example they've pronounced, they've provided with the, let me see, who can tell if there is a noon example here? There is no noon example, right? قُلُوبٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ. There's a wow, there's a ya, and then there's a wow, and there is a wow here, and then there is a meme. And there's no noon example because there's 4 letters, right? Ya, noon, meme, wow. So none of these examples have a noon following the noon ghunna or the sakina, but we'll see there is many more examples. Okay, like if say min nafsin wahida. So you can join the noon sakina with the noon, so it becomes min nafsin wahida. Okay, I'm just giving you an example from myself. Okay, so these are some of the examples. So first of all, is the rule clear to you? Idgham bi ghunna. Do you join the previous letter with the next word? Yes, these are all examples of insertion. قُلُوبٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ وَاجِفَةٌ. So you don't pronounce قُلُوبٌ, but you say قُلُوبٌ, and you don't say يَوْمَئِذٍ وَاجِفَةٌ, but you say يَوْمَئِذٍ وَاجِفَةٌ. And then you have here لَغْوًا وَلَا كِذَّابًا. So you don't say لَغْوًا وَلَا كِذَّابًا, you say لَغْوًا وَلَا كِذَّابًا. And then you say مِن مَاءٍ مَهِينٍ. مَاءٍ مَهِينٍ. You don't say مَاءٍ مَهِينٍ. You don't say the in, but you say مَاءٍ. You join the tanween with the meme. Okay. And then لَهَبٍ وَتَبٍ. You don't say لَهَبٍ, but you say لَهَبٍ وَتَبٍ. You join it with the wow. So these are all examples of idgham bi ghunna. So you guys understand what the rule is and how to apply it, and we can look at the examples and we can practice it. Okay. So I'm assuming you guys understand this. Okay. Then we can look at the examples. Okay. So let's go to Surah An-Nazi'at, because that's what's showing here in this, and it clearly has a lot of examples here. So we will go to Surah An-Nazi'at. Okay. All right. Let me see if I can make it stay here. Okay. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to read can you read the same, or can you read something else here? Let's read this verse here at the top. لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا. لغوا ولا كذابا. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and let you guys practice it. So Shahid Ahsan, go ahead and read that. لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا.
Very good. لغوا ولا كذابا. Jazakallah khair. Next person in line is Kamran. Go ahead and read the لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا. Go ahead and read, please, Kamran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا.
MashaAllah, very good. But your kidhaba, the zal, this is not related to today.
Yes.
It should be kidhaba with the tongue sticking to the tip of your tongue, touching the bottom part of your front top teeth. Okay, kidhaba. Okay. Jazakallah khair. So next one in line is Javed. You want to try this, Javed, please?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم لا يسمعون فيها لغوا ولا كذابا.
لغوا ولا كذابا.
لغوا لا كذابا.
لغوا ولا كذابا.
لغوا ولا كذابا.
Very good. Jazakallah khair. Okay, I think the other person already disconnected. So we'll move to the next part of the text, which is, okay, exceptions. There are some exceptions to this rule. If nun sakin is followed by one of the idgham letters within one word, then there is no idgham, okay? So remember when we were reading this, then it has to be, idgham has to be when there are two words and not within one word. So this is just reiterating the same thing. And if it's within the same word, then there is no idgham. And there are some examples, but let's read what it says here. Instead, we say the noon clearly. In this case, it's called izhar mutlaq. It's an absolute izhar. Then we have to pronounce it clearly. It is called this because it's not from the izhar al-halqi. There is no throat letter, but instead it is called izhar mutlaq because it's not an izhar because of the normal izhar letters. Remember the last rule that we covered? it had those 6 letters, Hamza, Ha, Ain, Ha, Ghain, Kha. So it's not because of those, but it's because there is supposed to be idgham, but it's because idgham is only applicable between two words and not within a word. Then you call this izhar mutlaq. Okay, hopefully that is clear. We'll look at the examples below. Okay. Okay. The occurrence of the noon sakina followed by one of the letters of the group yanmu in the same word occurs only in 4 words in the Quran. Subhanallah. So it's these 4 words are described below, and always with the noon sakina followed by either waw or a ya. Okay, so you have qinwanun, sinwanun, bunyanan, ad-dunya. So dunya is very common. Qinwan is also from the Quran, and then sinwan is another one, and then you have bunyanan. So in the case of qinwan, you have a waw followed by a noon sakina. So in normal idgham rule, you would have to do what? You would have to do qinwanun. You would have to do that, right? But you can't do that here because it's within the same word. And the rule is that it cannot be done within the same word. So you just pronounce the noon clearly, as in qinwanun, qinwanun. And then you have sinwan, same rule, same kind of thing. Instead of the qaf, it's sad, so sinwanun. And then in here in bunyana, there is a ya after the noon sakin. So normal idgham rules, you would have to say bunyanan. But you can't do bunyanan because it's within the same word. So you have to pronounce the noon sakin properly. So you have to say bunyanan, bunyanan. And same thing with dunya. Okay, ad-dunya. You have to pronounce the noon clearly. You can't say dunya. Okay, so you have to pronounce the noon clearly, and that is called izhar mutlaq, ad-dunya. Okay. So try and practice these 4 as well. Make sure you pronounce them clearly. Qinwanun, sinwanun, bunyanan, ad-dunya. Okay. So that was that. And then izhar, in these cases, is that if idgham rules were applied, the true meaning of the word would be confusing to understand. That's why idgham cannot be applied within the same word. Another exception to the idgham bi gunna rule is the noon sakina followed by a waw in the Quran. So in this case, let's see, the noon sakina followed by a waw in the Quran. In this case, Yasin wal Quran al Hakim. So you can't say Yasin wal Quran al Hakim. Okay. And then noon wal qalami wa ma yasturun. So you can't say noon wal qalam. You can't join the 2 together. The lack of idgham occurs when we read the letter noon and seen in continuum with the next letter, which is the waw. It is to be noted that the noon ends with a noon sakina, and as does the letter seen, and that is what the beginning refers to here. What is being referred to here? Hafs, the great reader of the Quran, whom we take specific readings from, by the way of Shatibiyya, reads these 2 above examples with izhar when joining the noon and seen with the next word. So you say Yasin wal Quran al Hakim. You don't say Yasin and then noon wal qalami wa ma yasturun. So you don't say noon. You don't join the 2 because these are exceptions. Okay. These letters can also be read by stopping on the noon sakina. So Yasin, and then you stop, and then you say wal Quran al Hakim. You can do that too. And same thing with noon, noon wal qalami wa ma yasturun. So you can stop at the noon as well. Okay. So those 2 are both proper ways of reading. Okay. So now we come to the last part of idgham, which is idgham bi ghayr gunna, which is without gunna. You have the 2 remaining letters from Yarmalun are lam and ra. So these two letters, when they come after the Nun Sakina or the Gunna, Nun Sakina or the Tanween letters, then the idgham occurs, the joining or inserting from the last to the next letter comes, but it is without any gunna because of these two letters, lam and ra. Okay, if it was one of the other four, which is ya, nun, mim, waw, we saw that there will be gunna, but here with the lam and ra, there will be no gunna at all, and we'll see the example. Okay, when one of these two letters begins, the word that follows one that has a nun sakina or tanween at the end of it, we then completely merge the nun into the next letter, which is either lam or ra with no gunna. Okay, this is why this division of the idgham is called idgham kamil bighayr gunna, complete insertion without any gunna. Okay. All right. So here the examples are waylul li kulli humazatil lumaza. So waylul. So here, you say waylun. You don't say waylunli. You just join the lam with the lam, and you have no gunna. Waylul li kulli. Okay. And humazatil lumaza. Humazatil lumaza. So normally you would say humazatil, but you don't say the gunna because the lam rule is there is no gunna. Humazatil lumaza. Waylul li kulli humazatil lumaza. Okay. And then you have kulu mir rizqi rabbikum. Kulu mir rizqi rabbikum. So you have mir rizqi. So you join the noon sakin with the ra without any gunna. Mir rizqi. So it's as if the noon didn't exist. We write it, but we don't pronounce it. Kulu mir rizqi rabbikum. An exception of idgham bighayr gunna is made by Hafs and Asim in Tariq al-Shatibiyya in Surah Al-Qiyamah. Due to a sakt stop with ra. So you pronounce, this is the only example that I know that they are talking about here. The exception, waqila man ra. Even though there is a ra, you cannot pronounce it marraq because this one, because there is a sakta here. There is a, you have to kind of take a pause without taking a breath. Waqila man, you don't take a breath here. You just say raq. Waqila man raq. So this is the only example. We'll cover this, inshallah, when we're reading Surah Al-Qiyamah. But you have to remember that other than that, when you have lam or ra coming after the tanween or noon sakina, you have to join them together, but without any gunna. Waylun li kulli humazatil lumaza. Kulu mir rizqi rabbikum. No gunna, and joining them together as if the tanween didn't exist or the noon sakina didn't exist. Even though we do write it, we just don't pronounce the gunna. Okay, except in the case of waqila man raq. Okay. All right. Here we read waqila man and then stop for a short time without taking a breath and then read raq. The sakt is what prevents the idgham from taking place. Since it prevents the noon and ra from meeting. Okay. Okay. So complete and incomplete merging. Idgham kamil wa idgham naqis. The scholars are in agreement that when a noon sakina or tanween merge with a lam or ra, the idgham merge is complete. This means that there is nothing left in the noon sakina. It has to be completely merged into the lam or ra, no gunna whatsoever, as if it didn't exist. Most scholars agree that when tanween or noon sakina merge with the noon or mim, that is also idgham kamil, complete merging. The complete merging is denoted by the shadda on the letter that is being merged into mudgham fi. In the case of noon, mim, or ra, or lam, this agreement among the scholars also that when There is agreement also among the scholars that when noon sakin or tanween merged with a waw or ya, then this is idgham naqis, incomplete merging. The merging is not complete because there is a gunna left over from the noon, and the ya and waw do not have a gunna in their characteristics whereas the noon does. This is the reason you do not see a shadda over the ya or waw in majority of the printings of the Quran when there is idgham. So this is just a side note that there is gunna left over in the yanmu and not any gunna in the lam and ra when you're doing the idgham. So that is all for idgham, and we did izhar and idgham today. And inshallah, next week we will cover iqlab and ikhfa. Iqlab and ikhfa are the two other rules that are left for the noon sakina and tanween. And inshallah, we will cover them next week bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Okay, so if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask them. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and end the class. Okay. Barakallah feek. Jazakumullah khairan. Let's make dua for us. Inshallah, we will show how in the Quran Flash we get the sound. Sure. Flash, you just click on the sentence, and then this whole thing comes up, and then you select the listen button.
اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى.
Okay, or let's see if there is any other way. So if I go to the next page, the letter is selected. I think you have to select the sentence, and then you can press the play button.
عبس وتولى أن جاءه الأعمى.
And you have to select the reciter from the list here also. If you have nothing selected, it may not work. Okay, so you can go to any verse and then
علمت نفس ما أحضرت.
Okay, so try it on your computer, inshallah. I selected Abdullah Basfar because he reads slowly and clearly, so it's easy to recognize all the rules, and because we're doing it slowly and clearly. You can choose anything else if you want. Just make sure somebody who reads slowly, so it's easier for you to recognize all the rules, because we're trying to learn, right? So that's the point. Okay. Yeah, you select Abdullah Baswar. It's easier for you. Okay, inshallah. Barakallah fi. So inshallah we'll cover iqlab and ikhfa in the next class bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk.